Welcome. I hope you are having a wonderful night, dear viewer. Tonight, I will be telling some terrifyingly scary stories. Make sure to leave your feedback on the comments, so I can make this the best experience for you. And if you have any stories you would like me to tell, you can send them through the link in the description. Let's begin. Story 1. It was a quiet night, and I decided to watch the Jeffrey Epstein documentary on Netflix. Little did I know that it would unleash a flood of memories, leaving me utterly spooked. As I lay in bed, engrossed in the documentary, a familiar face flashed across the screen. A victim of Epstein's heinous crimes and, shockingly, one of my childhood friends. I feel compelled to share my story, though I'm not entirely sure if it belongs here. Nevertheless, here it is. I've spent most of my life in South Florida under the tight control of my overbearing parents. They had strict rules that deprived me of normal childhood experiences. No phone calls with friends, no extracurricular activities, unless they were academically focused, and forget about having friends over or visiting anyone's house. To top it off, my father worked at my elementary school, ensuring that I remained on my best behavior. So when I finally entered middle school, I was filled with excitement and a sense of freedom. My true personality could finally shine, and making friends became much easier. Within a year, I had developed a close friendship with two girls, whom we'll call Heather and Sharon. They were both attractive, popular, and friendly. But what fascinated me most was that Heather was the only girl I knew in middle school who could sleep over at a boy's house. This was an entirely foreign concept to me, as my parents had declared that I couldn't even go on a date with a boy until after I graduated. High school or college, they didn't specify. Naturally, I thought Heather was the coolest chick I had ever met. The three of us became inseparable, earning ourselves the nickname the Tripod. We shared the same classes and lunch periods, growing incredibly close over time. Heather and Sharon often invited me to hang out with them after school or on weekends. But with my strict parents, there was no chance of that happening. I made countless attempts to seek permission, but they were always met with rejection. No maybes or compromises. I felt left out whenever Heather and Sharon spent time together without me, though, as you'll soon discover, it was a blessing in disguise. One day, during lunchtime in the courtyard, Heather took me aside and proposed the idea of skipping school for a day. Instantly, panic set in as I imagined the automated message that would be sent to our homes, alerting our parents that we were absent. My parents' wrath would be unleashed upon me, and I couldn't risk it. So I laughed off the suggestion, dismissing it as an impossible endeavor. However, Heather persisted relentlessly, continuously asking until she managed to convince me. We embarked on a week-long planning process during lunch, the thrill of it filling me with excitement. I had never done anything like this before. Our plan was for my mom to drop me off at school as usual, and then Heather and Sharon would be waiting for me. From there, we would simply walk to the gas station near the school and have one of Heather's friends pick us up. As for avoiding the school's automated call, I hadn't quite figured that part out yet. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention that Heather stressed several times that I needed to wear something innocent looking. I brushed it off, considering myself innocent enough as a 13-year-old. The plan went smoothly, and we began our walk to the gas station. However, as we made our way there, Heather's cell phone started buzzing incessantly. She answered each call and text, repeating, "Just meet us at the gas station," like we usually do. Confusion washed over me. Weren't we supposed to be spending the day as the Tripod? As we approached the gas station, I saw a group of about 7 other girls, all around the same age as us, 12 to 14 years old. I recognized some of them from school, while others were unfamiliar faces. They all seemed excited when Heather arrived. Suddenly, Heather exclaimed, "Who's ready to make some money?" The majority of the girls raised their hands and cheered. I grabbed Sharon, my curiosity piqued, and asked her what was happening. The look she gave me is etched into my memory, a mixture of warning and uncertainty. as if she was silently urging me to escape while I still could. She never said a word. It felt odd to see such a large group of young girls who should have been in school congregating at a gas station. Standing there, 2 black Lincoln Town cars screeched to a halt in front of us. Heather began assigning numbers to the girls, instructing the first group to get into the first car, which immediately sped away. The second car rolled down its window slowly, revealing an older man wearing sunglasses. He asked us if we were ready to go to the mansion, which excited the other 2 girls behind me. They eagerly jumped into the car, followed by Sharon. Heather stood next to me, nudging me to join them, but instead of complying, I confronted her, demanding to know what was happening, where we were going, who the man was, and why she had never mentioned any of this in our planning. Annoyance flickered across her face as she retorted, "Out of all the girls I bring, you're the only one giving me a problem. I thought you'd want to get out and finally have some fun. And with your body, you could make a killing." At the time, I was naive, oblivious to the true meaning behind her words. Yet her tone and the pressure she exerted unsettled me. I chose to back out, turning away and running back to school. Despite feeling embarrassed for abandoning my friends, I feared my mother's wrath and her belt far more. Moreover, the thought of getting into a car with a stranger screamed stranger danger. I am eternally grateful that my parents instilled that fear in me. It saved me from potentially dire consequences. After that incident, my friendship with Heather faded away. Although she made a few more attempts to hang out, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling I got from her. I noticed her frequently leaving school and walking toward the gas station, always accompanied by a group of girls. Sharon, on the other hand, spiraled into depression slowly. She distanced herself from everyone except Heather, who she clung to like a lost puppy. Sharon began missing school more frequently until the day she ceased attending altogether. Years later, I discovered that she had tragically ended it. And now, after watching the documentary, I'm convinced that she was one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, with Heather acting as one of his recruiters. In retrospect, I shudder to think of the dangerous path I narrowly avoided. My heart aches for Sharon and the countless others who fell victim to Epstein's insidious web. It serves as a sobering reminder of the darkness that can hide behind seemingly ordinary lives, and the importance of trusting our instincts and questioning suspicious situations. May Sharon rest in peace, and may justice prevail for all those affected by Epstein's heinous crimes. Story 2. I'm a hunter, and my preferred game is wild boar. While I have occasionally gone deer hunting and bagged a turkey for Thanksgiving, my main focus is on boars. You see, boars are a significant problem in the United States. A single sow can give birth to 2 litters in a year, with each litter consisting of 10 or more piglets. These animals are voracious eaters, consuming anything and everything in their path. It's no wonder that the Department of Fish and Wildlife imposes minimal restrictions on hunting them. In my state, it's illegal to hunt most large mammals with night or thermal vision scopes, except for boars and coyotes. I had been saving up for a year, allocating my discretionary funds for this specific purpose. It wasn't easy to explain to my wife why a scope that cost twice as much as the rifle it was mounted on was worth the investment, but I did it. I took the scope to a shooting range and sighted it in, making sure it was calibrated correctly. I had identified an area with frequent boar activity, which I knew would be ideal for a night hunt. It was easily accessible by my truck, with well-defined spots where I could set up and overlook a large clearing. The night started off uneventfully, with me mostly tinkering with my new toy and experimenting with its various settings. I must admit, I was a bit impatient. Although I spotted several deer, they were out of season, and my current setup wasn't legal for deer hunting. I decided to move to another spot that I had scouted a few days earlier. It probably wasn't much better than my initial location, but it provided a change of scenery and a fresh angle to survey the area through my new scope. After about an hour of scanning the surroundings, something struck me. This spot seemed devoid of any animal activity at night. No rabbits scurrying around, no owls hooting in the distance. The deer I had seen earlier were hundreds of yards away from my current position. Why was this particular area so lifeless during the night, but teeming with activity during the day? It was around 2 a.m. when I began contemplating packing up and perhaps setting up a target for some practice shots before calling it a night. That's when I heard a crunching sound coming from the direction I'd come from. I swiveled my scope in that direction and saw the silhouette of what I initially thought was a small bear pushing through the bushes. However, upon closer examination, I realized it was a man. He was crouched low, which had misled me into believing it was a bear cub. Could it be a game warden? No, that couldn't be the case because I would have seen the headlights of their vehicle approaching from the road. Besides, where could he have come from? I was 30 miles away from civilization, deep in the public lands. Just as I was about to call out to the man, I adjusted my scope and noticed that he was completely naked. No shoes, pants, or anything. His peculiar movements disturbed me. He twitched and grabbed at the foliage, sniffing around and touching the trees. Wait, was he near the tree against which I had been leaning earlier? That thought terrified me. Could he smell my presence? And then he did something that still haunts me in my nightmares. He squatted down, placing his hands in the dirt between his feet and stared straight up, resembling a howling dog. And from that direction, I heard a voice. A very compelling, feminine voice. "Help, I'm lost." There was a long pause, during which neither of us moved a muscle. I kept my sights trained at the dirt in front of his feet, unable to bring myself to aim directly at another person. It went against everything I had been taught about firearms. Were they genuinely lost? Was this some deranged person who had gone crazy out here? And why did his voice sound so feminine? "Help, please. I can't walk," the voice called out again. That's when I called bullshit. Not only could he walk, but he had been traversing the land with ease when I first spotted him. So much so that I mistook him for a bear. It was clear to me that this was a trap, an attempt to lure me closer with a damsel in distress routine. Fortunately, the lack of animal activity earlier had prompted me to pack up most of my gear. I may have left behind a hat and a sitting pad, but in that moment, I didn't care. I briefly took my eyes off him to put on my backpack. As I fastened the chest strap and fumbled for my rifle, I was horrified to find him still in the same position, but now his face was staring directly at me. I swear I saw a smile on his face. Due to the thermal scope's effect, the animal's eyes appeared white. How had he heard me getting up and preparing my gear? He must have been at least 150 yards away. "Fuck off!" I screamed in his direction. He suddenly stood upright, revealing his tall and skinny frame, easily 6 feet tall and extremely lean. He took a few long strides in my direction, and I instinctively fired a round above his head, into the tree line. Although he had been incredibly eerie, he hadn't posed an immediate threat. What would I tell the police? I was unwilling and unprepared to shoot someone. He stopped abruptly and crouched down on all fours. "The next one will mess you up. Go away," he snarled, remaining in that position. This time, I had my sights trained on his center. His eyes were just above the grass, reminiscent of a large cat. I tried to steady my trembling hands and composed myself, but my voice cracked slightly as I issued my warning. I was terrified. The standoff between us lasted only a minute or two, perhaps even less, but it felt like an eternity. In an instant, he bolted to the left, disappearing into the underbrush on the opposite side of the road. So much for not being able to walk. He moved so fast that I could barely keep him in my scope. He vanished, and I fired another shot, this time aimed high in his direction. I quickly tried to swap out my magazine for a fresh one, but dropped it in the process. Without bothering to retrieve it, I sprinted towards my truck. I could still hear him in the distance, emitting a strange sound that could have been either laughter or a cry. Breathless, I reached my truck and tossed my gear into the cab. I kept the rifle in the passenger seat and sped away, leaving that terrifying encounter behind. For the longest time, I recounted this story as an encounter with some deranged crackhead, living off the land like a primitive caveman. I reported the incident to the Fish and Game authorities, but they scolded me for hunting alone at night and never provided any updates. It wasn't until I shared my story during a camping trip that my nephew told me about wendigos, rakes, and skinwalkers. My narrative scared the life out of him, particularly because we were technically camping in the same forest where I had encountered the bizarre figure. It was only 50 miles east of that location. He was so spooked that his mom, my cousin, had to take him home, and she was quite angry with me. Since then, I've delved into the world of these scary stories. I'm not claiming that what I saw was definitively a wendigo or a skinwalker. I'm simply acknowledging that if such creatures exist, I narrowly escaped a truly horrifying fate that night. Or perhaps it was just a drugged out individual imitating Donnie Thornberry in the middle of the night. Either way, I thought I would share my chilling experience. Story 3. To preface this story, I am a paramedic with over 10 years of experience in emergency medicine. Throughout my career, I've encountered some bizarre and disturbing situations, but nothing could have prepared me for the pure terror I experienced about 6 years ago. For privacy and HIPAA reasons, I won't be sharing specific or identifying details. This might be a lengthy read, but I assure you, it's worth it. Around 6 years ago, I relocated to a new city for work. I joined a 911 ambulance service that covered calls in both the city and the surrounding county, which included a few small towns. The city itself had a population of less than 100,000 people. Working for this service meant enduring 24-hour shifts. It wasn't an overly busy area, so we usually received around 5 to 10 calls within that time frame, allowing for some decent sleep at night. This city had a rough reputation due to the booming oil industry, which attracted people from all walks of life to work in the nearby oil fields. One night in January, my partner, an MT basic, and I received a call in the neighboring town. It was around 2 a.m. when the call came in, and all we knew was that a person in an apartment had dialed 911 after hearing the downstairs neighbor scream for help. We responded to the call with lights and sirens, since the details were sparse. Upon arrival, we found the police and fire department already on the scene, preparing to enter the building alongside us. The individual who made the 911 call directed us to the specific apartment where she heard the screams. Initially, we tried knocking on the door to get the resident to respond. When there was no answer, the fire department prepared to force entry, but fortunately, the landlord arrived and provided us with keys to the unit. As we opened the door, a sense of creepiness settled over us. The entire apartment was engulfed in darkness. Not a single light to be seen. It felt as if nobody was home. The police officers went in first and we followed suit, using our flashlights to navigate the space. The kitchen and dining room immediately caught our attention. They resembled a hoarder's paradise with mountains of garbage, food, and dishes piled 5 feet high. The living room was just as chaotic, filled with magazines, clothes, and more trash. We could barely find a narrow walkway to move through the apartment. The officers proceeded down the hallway, leading to the bedroom and bathroom. One of them halted at the bathroom door, noticing a faint light shining from underneath. He opened the door and stood motionless in the hallway. In a flat tone, he uttered, "She's in here." I took the lead and entered the bathroom first. The first thing that struck me was the peculiarity of the light. Pale yellow glow emanated from a single bulb on the ceiling, reminiscent of the old heat lamps commonly found in bathrooms. Its unnatural hue gave off an eerie vibe. The second thing I noticed was the complete absence of anything in the bathroom. No floor mats, toilet cover, towels, or even knacks. Just emptiness. Except for one thing. The vanity with the sink. On top of the vanity, there were around 20 to 30 makeup bottles piled up. Some opened and leaking, resulting in powders and liquids scattered everywhere. And then, my eyes fell upon an elderly woman lying in the tub. My partner stepped in behind me, suggesting that we simply call the coroner and inform them of the body. 2 officers joined us in the bathroom. making it a total of 4 people squeezed into this tiny space, with me positioned next to the woman in the tub. Considering my profession, I felt compelled to carry out my due diligence and ensure the woman was deceased. I knelt down next to the tub, extending my arm and placing my fingers on her neck to check for a carotid pulse. In an instant, without warning or the slightest indication of movement, the woman sprung up out of the tub with the agility and speed of a feral cat. My instinctive response was to quickly stand up, and there I stood, frozen, staring at her. She stared back at me, her eyes wide open, before unleashing a piercing scream. With her hands, she attempted to cover herself as best she could while still sitting in the water. I looked around and realized that everyone else who had been in the bathroom with me had bolted out, leaving me alone with the woman. Not a soul in sight. I tried to collect myself, attempting to calm the lady down by explaining who I was and why I was there. She denied ever screaming and claimed that she performed this routine every morning to alleviate joint pain caused by her condition. According to her, soaking in warm water was a regular part of her routine. At this point, doubts crept into my mind, questioning the woman's sanity. I probed her about self-harm and addressed the possibility of suicidal behavior. However, she denied everything. The next step was to assess her mental capacity to determine if she was in the right state of mind to make rational decisions. She answered all my other questions appropriately, and based on the law, she was mentally sound and capable of refusing any and all medical care. I asked if she would at least allow me to check her vitals so I could ensure her overall health and include it in my report. She vehemently refused, demanding that I leave her house, exercising her right to do so. I acknowledged her decision and had her sign a refusal of service form. As I exited the bathroom, my partner, the 2 officers who had been with me, as well as 2 additional officers and firefighters waiting in the apartment, stared at me with wide eyes and gaping mouths. Rendered speechless, without uttering a word, we all left the apartment. Once we were outside, an uneasy feeling consumed me, and I burst into uncontrolled laughter. My partner and the officers joined in, releasing the tension that had built up inside us. I thought I might have even soiled myself in that moment. Later, my partner informed me that all he remembered was seeing the woman move, hearing me exclaim, "Oh fuck," which I don't even recall, and rushing out of the bathroom. I wish I could say that was the last time I encountered that lady, but that would be a lie.